everyone, it's Casey. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing, I guess, kind of like a book review and like a book comparison between three books. And they are all books about tornadoes. And specifically like really damaging, really famous ones. So the two main books that I'm going to be talking about are What Stands in the Storm by Kim Cross. This is about the 2011 tornado outbreak that happened in Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia. But this book specifically focuses on the Alabama storms and mainly the Tuscaloosa tornado. And then the second book I'm going to compare it to is The Mercy of the Sky by Holly Bailey. This book focuses on the 2013 Moore, Oklahoma tornado, and it talks a little bit about the El Reno tornado, El Reno, Oklahoma, that happened like a week after the Moore tornado. And then the third book that I'm going to kind of talk about, it's a super short book, so I can't really compare it to the other book, but it is When the Sirens Were Silent by Mike Smith. This one talks about the Joplin tornado in 2011, but it mainly talks about the warning system. So I'll talk about this one at the end. It's pretty good. So let me just start with kind of giving a rundown of each book. So we'll start with What Stands in the Storm by Kim Cross. Like I said, this one's about the 2011 Alabama tornado outbreak, specifically the Tuscaloosa tornado. And so this book kind of does what, if you've ever read The Perfect Storm does, which is like one of my all-time favorite nonfiction books and books about the weather. It's very good. And it's kind of like my gold standard. I compare all other nonfiction to The Perfect Storm. And it's written in a similar way in that it gives you like the background on all the main characters. Like this doesn't just focus on the minutes that the tornado was in Tuscaloosa. It talks about the morning before. It goes in depth about the cast of characters, and then it focuses on the recovery. So it covers a lot of people. Like I listened to this on audiobook / also reading it. And when I was listening to the audiobook, sometimes it was hard to differentiate between all the people that were going on. So I think if I had read it in the physical form the whole time, that would have been a little bit easier, because I would have had the, recognition of seeing people's names. This to me was very heartbreaking because it showed like actual text messages between people. So like it followed these particular 3 college students who passed away in the storm, but it showed like their text messages right before then, like with their parents. Like one of them was texting her mom, and then it shows like her mother's distress on not knowing what happened to her daughter, and then once she found out that her daughter died, and it follows like the burial process. So this like goes a long way. Like it goes definitely like right in the aftermath, like the couple following days afterwards. But then it does chapters on like a year later and then like a couple years later. The one interesting choice about this book that I kind of didn't like is that it specifically focused on the Alabama tornadoes, and the storm actually started, like the tornado-wise of the storm started in Mississippi. So I don't know why she didn't cover like the Mississippi and Georgia parts of the tornadoes. I don't know if it's just because that storm was so big. Like it spawned, I don't know if it ever says, but like 49 tornadoes touched down in 21 states. So I guess maybe she just had to narrow down. I would have liked to seen more about this storm. This is very character driven of a book, and kind of less about the storm, if that makes sense. It's like heavy on the characters, learning who these people are, being sad when you find out that they died. I actually, in the middle of it, I don't normally do this, but like I had to know if the main 3 college students that you follow in this, if they died, and so I googled it, and then they did, and then I like cried. But so that's that book. Then the second book is The Mercy of the Sky by Holly Bailey. This is the one that follows the 2013 Moore, Oklahoma tornado. And it talks a lot about, there was also a tornado in 1999 that hit Moore, and they followed almost the exact same path. So it talked a lot about that 1999 storm too, and about like how the people of Moore had rebuilt and made Moore even better, and then they were all at threat with the 2013 tornado. And it does talk a little bit about the 2013 El Reno tornado that happened like a couple weeks after the Moore tornado. This one was especially heartbreaking because it follows like the principal of a school, because 2 elementary schools were hit in the Moore tornado during school time. And so that was really like hard, and so, like students passed away, like 7 third graders, I think they were all in the 3rd grade, passed away during this. So that was really hard. Again, it was kind of like with the other one, like not knowing whether or not they passed away. And in the middle of this one, I actually looked up like the pictures of the elementary schools, like of the destruction, and it was insane, like crazy. So this book focuses a lot on the storm. Like it does a similar thing where it follows like a cast of characters, but it is primarily during the storm. Like you learn what these people felt like during the tornado, and it doesn't talk a lot about like the cleanup and the aftermath. It has like just a couple chapters about it. It was also really interesting because it followed one of the meteorologists on TV. England was his last name. I forget his first name, but so that was really interesting. So out of the 2 of these books, I really love them. I think I give them on Goodreads both 4 stars, because I really did like them both. I would say that if you just want to pick up like a really good book about tornadoes and you have like no emotional investment to either Alabama or Oklahoma, I would pick up What Stands in the Storm. I think it's the one that was slightly better written than The Mercy of the Sky. Yeah, it was very well written. I would recommend this one if you have no investment. But if you're from Oklahoma or Kansas, or have any sort of investment of that traditional tornado alley, I would definitely check out The Mercy of the Sky. Because I had lived in Oklahoma for 3 years, and so I have specific memories of the places that they're talking about, of this tornado, definitely of the El Reno tornado. And like the newscaster was a newscaster I used to watch. So I think that is why I liked this one better, but it's because I had more of a connection with it, obviously. So I think what's going to happen is if you read either of these books, you're going to want to read the other. That's what happened with me. It kind of sent me like into a mini tornado hole where I just wanted to read all about them. But they're both, it's funny because they use almost similar anecdotes. I read these back to back within like 5 days. I read both of them. And they use similar anecdotes. Like they both tell this story about how Benjamin Franklin was one of the first storm tracers, and how he talked about seeing this whirlwind in Maryland and he chased it on a horse. So that was interesting because they both kind of talk about that. And again, they both follow the cast of characters, but I just think this one was slightly better well written than The Mercy of the Sky. But if you're from Oklahoma, definitely check this one out. And then there is one third tornado book that I have read recently that I just want to kind of throw in here, and it is called When the Sirens Were Silent by Mike Smith. Like I said, this one talks about Joplin. Again, it's super short. It's only like 65 pages, and it doesn't go into the background that the other books do. Like it talks a lot about the failure of the National Weather Service in Springfield getting out warnings that were accurate. They were giving out warnings that were saying that it was going in like the wrong direction, so that the people of Joplin didn't really even know it was coming out of it. It also talked a lot about something that's really interesting to me, and it's where the title of the book comes from, where the sirens were silent. It talks about warning fatigue and the fact that if you set off the tornado warning sirens, that if you set them off too often, people are going to be complacent. I guess, I think it was this book, what Stands in a Storm also talks about this. I guess, at the time, the National Weather Service had an 80% failure rating on the sirens, meaning that they would put out a warning, and 80% of the time a tornado would not come out of that tornado warning. And so yeah, people are not going to listen to them. And then so this book talks a lot about that, and that's true. I mean, I lived in Oklahoma, and during the springtime they'll go off like not even exaggerating, once a week. And so if a tornado doesn't come, like, you do become complacent and you don't trust them and you don't get undercover, which is a lot about this. And like the title is talking about When the Sirens Were Silent, is about how even if they go off, like if you've kind of cried wolf, are they really even making a sound? You know, like if a tree falls in the forest and no one's around, does it even make a sound? Like, if no one is listening to the sirens and no one trusts them, are they even making any sound? So that book was really interesting. When the Sirens Were Silent would not be like a good intro book if you don't know anything about tornadoes. If you don't know like what a hook echo is, you probably will not really get the most from this book. I think with the other two books, you definitely don't have to know anything about tornadoes. They are both, especially What Stands in a Storm, but even both of them, they are both really just character studies and about like the ability of humans to overcome things. But When the Sirens Were Silent is not a character study. It is a harsh criticism, and not harsh that he's wrong. Like, I 100% agree with him that there are major problems with the warning systems. Anyway, those are 3 quick reviews of just 3 tornado books. So please subscribe and leave a comment on if you have any recommendation for weather books, because it's something I'm quite fascinated with, is the weather. Okay, thanks. Bye.